right, everybody, welcome to the Gen X News on X. It is an unusual time for us to be doing the stream. It's a daytime show today, but we also have a nighttime show. So this morning, proper English here. This morning, we are talking about part 2 of the Bible Decoded with Micah Dank. I just confused him with someone else. Oh boy, I need to wake up. This is what happens when I stream in the morning. Okay, so Micah Dank is here. He was here on part 1. We talked about the Bible. We're going to talk about it a little bit some more. He's going to go over the presentation. Tonight, the beast system is running at 10 p.m. Eastern, and it's a weird one. It's about clowns and the Nephilim. I never even thought about this before, but we're going to talk about it. I'll probably talk about serial killers because you all know I like true crime, but join us later today as well. And tomorrow we're having Tinfoil Hat Friday. Should be 7 p.m. Eastern. 7 p.m. my time, 9 p.m. Eastern. We are going to talk about Trump as a time traveler. What kind of conspiracy theory is that, huh? So I'll give you guys a few moments to stream in. Not a usual time, so a lot of you may not know what's happening. We are streaming right now to a lot. I'm putting this all over to all my channels. We've got 2 YouTube channels. We're streaming on Facebook. We're streaming on Rumble, and we're streaming on X. So I appreciate everyone's support. If you repost this so people can see on your X account, give it a heart. If you're on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. Please go and subscribe to the channel, the Rumble channel. I'll put the link up there. It is Gen X on X on Rumble. Subscribe to it. I only have 21 subscribers. It's new. We're streaming there. I don't trust YouTube, and Rumble is not as censoring. YouTube has demonetized my Ghost Archive channel, and they didn't even give me my super chats that people had paid like a year ago. So don't try not to do YouTube. I'm still streaming there. Try to go over to Rumble. That is rumble.com. It's Gen X on X. I really appreciate it. So share it. And if you happen to listen to Ghostly Archives on the audio podcast, 5 stars helps us show up, whether you're on iTunes or Stitcher, Spotify. If you rate it 5 stars, it shows up in the charts. We actually get some interaction. So remember, if your friends are doing a podcast like I'm doing here, help them out. Share. It's the easiest thing you can do. And of course, you can always go to Buy Me a Coffee. That's right, Buy Me a Coffee. I believe it is Gen X News on X at Buy Me a Coffee. I'll find the link in a second, but it's there. And our website, of course, is www.genxnewsx.com. Links are all there to everywhere: Rumble, Buy Me a Coffee, YouTube. There's a blog. There's a link to the Ghostly Archives. There's a link to the Beast System. Everything's on the website, so please check it out. Okay, so who do we have in the chat? Ivy Ramirez, great morning to you, Ivy. I hope you enjoy this one. It is going to be a little bit different with the context of the Bible. It's not your typical stuff. Last week we looked at how the Bible is possibly a representation of astrological signs and constellations, things in the heavens. I know a lot of you may be Christian, and that may be not what you like to hear, but have an open mind. We're just presenting a different presentation to kind of let you know a lot of the stuff that's happening out there with Israel. It's all crazy, and we want to put some sanity on it. So let's get Micah in here, and he can take it away and present to you part 2 of the Bible Decoded. Welcome to the show, Micah.
Thank you for having me again.
Awesome. So where did we leave off last time in part 1?
Didn't we do the book of Matthew?
Yeah, because I wanted to get into the Pope and all the creepy stuff, because everybody keeps telling me he's the Antichrist, so I don't know. So where are we starting off today? What do we want to talk about in terms of the Bible and how it's decoded?
So this is going to be a continuation of last week's. So I'm not going to go back and explain anything from last week. So if people are new here, they're going to want to watch that too.
I'll get you guys the link. I'll put the link all across the platforms while Micah's talking. I'll get the links to part 1 for you guys.
Right. So I'm just going to continue and make the case against literal religion. So if you want to put the screen up.
Absolutely. There we go. There
All right.
you are.
So let's start with this. So hold on one sec. No, hold on.
We'll get this organized. Don't worry, guys.
One sec, guys. Sorry.
I'm putting in the link for you guys to part 1. I'm putting in the Rumble link, so I'm encouraging you guys to Rumble. But if you guys go onto the YouTube channel, you won't find it on the Ghostly Archives because I didn't stream it there, but it's on the Rumble part 1, and we go through a good chunk of content about Scorpio and different signs and what the actual scriptures, some stuff in the Bible pointing to in terms of astrological wisdom. A lot of people came on and said, "Oh, that's New Age." I've seen their comments on X, but it's actually not New Age. It's actually information and wisdom that's older than Christianity. It's ancient.
It's thousands
not
of years.
New Age. Yeah, it's not New Age.
New Age is a buzzword for Christians where they want to dismiss something they don't understand, like tarot or oracle or astrology. I can go on. You know, these sciences that people use. It's not New Age. All this stuff is older than even the idea of Satan. Before the idea of Satan ever came out. Right. This is older than that. So what is the point of this? We take for granted we have calendars, clocks, watches, weathermen. The ancients didn't have any of that. They had sundials. In the Bible, they worked on dream interpretations for harvest. They had to know things. They needed to know that Taurus was when you put the plow on the bull, as it is the bull in the sky, as above, so below. The Bible is an encoded farmer's almanac and was the knowledge of staying alive, the most important thing. They would look at the stars and see all the movements and make stories up about them and pass them down to their children, and them to their children. Eventually, they learned how to write and wrote it down, and it evolved from Sumerian to Babylonian to Egyptian to Judaism in the Old Testament, then to Christians in the New Testament, and even to the Quran for the Muslims. So my point, once again, is not that those ancient people told literal stories, and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically, and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. I want you to keep that in your mind when we go over this. So Jesus disappears at 12 and comes back at 30. This has been a subject of great debate, but the answer is actually quite simple. What happens to a young Jewish boy at the age of 12? He becomes bar mitzvahed. He becomes a man. So Jesus becomes a man and leaves to study. He starts his ministry at 30, but why? The ancient Jewish religion has roots in Saturnalia worship before it. And that's why their day of rest is the Saturday or the Saturn day. Whereas the Christians, it's the Sunday because Jesus is the sun. So why 30? Well, Saturnalia worshippers said that you were not allowed to become a teacher until Saturn came back to the point it was at when you were born. And it just so happens that Saturn takes 30 years to come back. So from the moment you're born, wherever Saturn is, it takes 29.5 to 30 years for it to come back. That's why they set the age at 30. So this is in Ezekiel's inaugural vision. In my 30th year, in the 4th month on the 5th day, when I was among the exiles by the Kebar River, the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. Remember, he was 30. When he turned 30, he saw God. Jesus started at 30. Genesis 32:30. The 30 references Jacob and the pineal gland. So this is the picture of Ezekiel right here on the right, talking to God. So if you were to look, you would notice that God is in the sun because the ancients believed that God was the sun. And then if you look at Ezekiel right here, on the right of him, you have a four-headed animal, which we touched base last time, and we talked about Revelation 4:7. Let's look at the animals. In the front, there's a lion. On the left, there's the bull. On the right, there's the man. And in the back is the eagle. And these are the four fixed signs of the zodiac. Remember how I showed you that it forms a pattern in the heavens? It forms an X through the zodiac wheel. It's the same thing here. It's the same thing here. And on the right of this is actually known as the tetramorph, the four-headed animal. And on the right of it, you have the zodiac wheel. This is how it is. This is not an angel. This is how the zodiac wheel was represented. So, the sun tells the hour of the day. The moon tells the day of the month. And the zodiac tells the month of the year. Where we're located in the Milky Way galaxy, in the middle of nowhere, we have a perfect celestial calendar that would allow us to figure this out. And to me, that's a fingerprint of creation. You know, all these people talking about, you know, does God exist? Does God not exist? All you got to do is look at this to see our perfect calendar. So although I get accused a lot of not believing in God or being demonic or whatever, I do believe in God. And I do believe in God because of this. Now, we know that the biblical flood never occurred because there were great civilizations thriving during that time. They kept good records and neglected to mention that they were all wiped from the face of the earth. You have the Chinese Neolithic dynasty, the Egyptian dynasties 4, 5, and 6, the Mesopotamians, the early dynastic period, the Sumerians, the early dynastic 3A and 3B, the Peruvians, Norte Chico civilization, and more. We find a continuous line of culture, construction, art, and historical records that runs through the time Noah's flood was supposed to have happened. And all it does, all you have to do is do some research. So Moses goes up to get the 10 commandments, and when he comes down, he sees them worshiping a golden calf. So what's more likely? The Jews got run out of Egypt. They couldn't even let the bread rise, which is why we have matzah to this day. They rushed to the desert with just the clothes on their back, but happened to carry enough gold between all of them, then went and found welding equipment in the desert and built a giant statue, or it's a metaphor. Just like everything else is in the Bible. The sun is the gold, and the calf is the bull of Taurus. They were worshiping the sun in Taurus, whereas they are the Jews or the people of Aries. So he breaks the commandments, becoming the first lawbreaker because he broke the law.
So it's kind of signifying the time of the year as well when these events are happening.
Exactly. That's all this is. You got to understand is that back in the day, we have so many creature convenience here that we don't even realize it. And on top of the fact that we have creature convenience and we don't even realize it, we have TV, we have supermarkets, we have all this stuff. They didn't have that. They had to grow their own stuff. They had to entertain themselves. They had to know the cycles of the year. And this is what they encoded. They coded this into these books in order for them to stay alive.
Well, and I mean, they have to know when to plant things. It's do or die. It's like
they're screwed. They're screwed if they. So you again, we go back to the bull, right? That's Taurus. That's right. That's where we are right now. Where we are right now. We're in. Actually, are we? Hold on. No, April.
Almost in a couple of days.
Yeah, it's in a couple of days. We're still in Aries right now. I didn't realize what day it was. It was the 18th. Yeah, but in a couple of days, it'll be the bull. And when you see the bull in the sky, where it's supposed to be, you put the plow on the bull on Earth. We have John Deere equipment that does this now. We don't need to use the bull, but this is how they encoded it because that's what they had to use. They had the bull. The bull had to till the field. Now, the staff is first mentioned in the book of Exodus, chapter 4, verse 2, when God appears to Moses in the burning bush. God asks what Moses had in his hand, and Moses answers, a staff or a rod. This staff is miraculously transformed into a snake and then back into a staff. So that's Exodus. But then if you go to Numbers, the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people so that many of the people of Israel died. So the story behind this is basically the Jews are tired of walking around in the desert, and they confront Moses, and they were going to bum rush him and everything. And then snakes came up out of the ground and bit a lot of the people. A lot died, but some were dying. They weren't dead yet. So they came to him and said, we have sinned because we have spoken against the Lord and you. Intercede with the Lord that he may remove the serpents from us. And Moses interceded for the people. Then the Lord said to Moses, and this is important, make a fiery serpent and set it on a standard. And it shall come about that everyone who is bitten, when he looks at it, he will live. Well, the staff, the snake on the staff, is actually the rod of Asclepius, which was Greek. And the New Testament was written in Greek, and they were very aware of the Greek culture and the rod of Asclepius. That becomes the caduceus, which is the medical symbol. But again, we were talking about New Age stuff, right? Well, look, the rod of Asclepius, the caduceus, it's right here in the Kundalini Yoga. This is thousands and thousands and thousands of years earlier than Christianity. So it's not New Age. New Age is just a buzzword given to Christians. So in the year 1367 BC, well before Moses, Akhenaten established monotheism under a sun god in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham, as the story goes, started the one true belief, but that's just not true at all. In fact, during this time period, they have found plenty of fertility gods and goddesses dug up in current times that the Jews have made. In fact, Moses is a character who's based on two Egyptians, Akhenaten, who's the basis of him, and Tuthmosis is where he gets his name, hence Moses.
Right. Well, I remember that big thing because with Akhenaten, after he died, they felt he was so blasphemous. They tried to erase, scratch all remnants of him away because they felt
he started
the
monotheism.
priests were not very impressed by what he did.
No, they weren't. He started monotheism.
Mm-hmm.
He started it. He wasn't
worshipping the Aten, like the sun disk, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The Egyptians kept pristine, meticulous records about their history, even the things that were unflattering or painted them in a bad light. There is zero evidence in the Egyptian records of Exodus happening, of Moses, of the plagues, of the Red Sea parting. There is also zero mention in the Bible of the pyramids or the Sphinx. You would think if they ran away from Egypt, which they supposedly did, which they didn't, but which they supposedly did, they would have a mention of these megaliths, but they didn't. So, simply and always having been described the path of the sun over the ecliptic as the sun dances its way around the 12 zodiacs. You have Mithra, born on December 25th, the Immaculate Conception. He is the sun god and Messiah. 12 disciples accepted sins. Was killed, then resurrected, becoming God incarnate. Cult includes communion and baptism. Adonis, born December 25th, Greek god of fertility, aka Babylonian Tammuz, aka Syrian savior. He was killed and buried, resurrected 3 days later. Dionysus, born on December 25th as a result of the Immaculate Conception, Greek god of winemaking, aka Bacchus, aka savior and liberator of mankind, naturally with communion. Osiris, born in late December to a virgin, the Egyptian sun and the underworld god, aka judge of the dead, aka one of the Egyptian Trinity. Ruled over 12 kings, betrayed, killed, buried, risen after 3 days. Horus, born December 25th to Isis as a result of the Immaculate Conception, from the spirit of Osiris. It's technically not the spirit of Osiris. I believe the story goes something like Osiris was broken, was chopped into a million little pieces, and when they put him back together, they couldn't find his penis. So I think that's basically what ended up happening. I don't remember what happened to the penis. I don't remember if they ever found it, but that's what the story says. Now, he's the god of the sun and the light, one of the Egyptian Trinity, embodied the resurrection. So this is just a couple examples of the same story being told over and over again. And this is where Christians come out and say they're not the same. Well, of course they're not the same. Things get changed a little bit over time as things continuously move. New stories are told, but it's the same story, but new versions of it come out with different characters and different stories, but it's the same thing. For example, the Egyptian 125, the chapter 125 in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the declaration of innocence before the gods of the tribunal. O swallower of shades, who came forth from Kernet, I have not slain people. That becomes, thou shalt not kill in the Bible. O doubly evil one, who came forth from the Brucerite gnome, I have not had intercourse with a married woman. That becomes, thou shalt not cover your neighbor's wife. O he who prospered the common people, who came forth from Asiot, I have not cursed the God. Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. 3 of the 10 commandments are mentioned in chapter 125 of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The rest can be found in the 42 positive affirmations of Matt. So there's nothing original about the 10 commandments. It goes back to ancient wisdom. For example, Lazarus is Osiris, who Horus raised from the dead. The Greek name Lazarus equals Eliezer in Hebrew and means whom God helps. It is a strange coincidence, firstly, that the person whom Jesus resurrects happens to be named whom God helps. And secondly, that Eliezer, or breaking down its original components in Hebrew, El-Azar, closely resembles a combination of the Semitic word for God, El, with the Egyptian name of Osiris, Osir. So the idea of Lazarus being raised by Jesus Christ in the New Testament is actually an old story that they borrowed. Go figure. Just like every other old story that they borrowed. Now, The ancient Egyptians used to worship the sun in Taurus, hieroglyphs of the bull with the sun between its horns. That's the age of Taurus. You see that. The Jews are the people of Aries. That's why they blow the ram's horn to the sky on the holidays, because Aries is the ram. Christians are the people of Pisces. That's why they have the Jesus fish, as shown below. This is also why Jesus is able to feed the masses with 2 fish. The 2 fish are Pisces. So look at this bottom left picture right here, okay? This is known as the Vesica Pisces. Hold on, what did I just do? Oh, no. Hold on.
Don't worry. You can get your place, no problem. I mean, it's also interesting, and it's also, I just want to add to the audience that it's a lot more practical than we like to make it out to be. There's a lot of practicality in a lot of this information, where we like it to be like some kind of, something a lot more elaborate than what it is.
Yeah, because what you got to understand is that the way to explain all of this stuff from Christian to Christian is using something called apologetics. That's how they use, like, for example, Jesus riding in on twin donkeys.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he ride in on twin donkeys? The snake talking, the donkey talking, things that don't really make sense. They have things that explain that, called apologetics, but it's a runaround, because when you're looking at the wrong answer, you can build it up very, very, very well, but it's still at its core the incorrect way to look at things.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this picture right here, down here. You see the Jesus fish between the Vesica Pisces?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if I were to put another little thing up here, there's the 2 fish, right?
Yeah.
You see the 2 fish? John 21. So Simon Peter climbed back into the boat and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153. But even with so many, the net was not torn, is what it says. Do you know why it's 153?
No, I don't.
Okay. You see the fish in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
Its mathematical equation is 247 over 153. So they embed sacred mathematics into this.
I would have never saw that. Not in a million years.
We don't give the ancients credit for the knowledge that they had. We only seem to attack them for what they were unable to do.
I can guarantee you they had better math skills than I do.
Oh, yeah. The Pythagorean theorem was discovered 1,000 years before Pythagoras. It was on a Sumerian tablet.
I mean, that makes sense. There's no way they could have built the pyramids and done a lot of the structures that they did if they didn't know math. There's no way.
We can't do it now.
Exactly.
So, but now check this out. So the Egyptians were the age of Taurus, right? The Jews were the age of Aries. The Christians are the age of Pisces. We're coming into the age of Aquarius now, right? And look at what happens right on time. One World Religion headquarters set to open next year, because every time there's a new zodiac sign that we're moving into, there has to be a new religion. There has to be.
How come they do this? Do they think it feeds them energy? Like, what's their shtick on this? Because it's ridiculous.
So that's the ultimate question. That is the ultimate question on why they do this. And I'm going to make a bigger case for it too as we continue. But it's divine. It's from God. The zodiac, the creation of the heavens, our celestial calendar, everything points to a creator. And it's just not the creator of the Bible. The creator of the Bible is Yahweh. Yahweh is a bloodthirsty person or God who wants sacrifices all the time and kills people all the time. Yahweh is not God.
Wasn't that the point of Jesus, was to stop people from sacrificing?
Well, yeah, I'll explain that in 2 seconds. But basically, Yahweh is ready for this? He's a Phoenician Canaanite deity, one of many that the Jews selected. If you were to look at the Jewish alphabet or the Hebrew alphabet and the Phoenician Canaanite alphabet, it's the same thing, basically. There's only very, very, very few slight changes, and it doesn't even change the way the letters sound. It's just missing a letter or two.
Why do you think, like, the Jewish people believe in this, like, because they're going to sacrifice these heifers like any day
Right,
now.
that's what I'm talking about.
Like in like probably in like 3 or 4 days. Why do you think they
Right, but
chose
go
this
back
and
to
they
here
believe
real
this?
quick. Go back to here real quick. The ancient Egyptians used to worship the sun and Taurus. The Jews were around at that time period too. They just became prevalent during the age of Aries, the ram. That's why they blow the ram's horn. You know, it's all in your face. You just don't know it. But here's the thing. Sacrificing the bull because they're trying to bring us back to the age of Taurus is incorrect, because that's where the original wisdom comes from. The Sumerians, the earliest writers, are from the age of Taurus. And that's where they want to take you back from. But no, we went to the age of Aries with the Jews. We went to the Christians with the fish. And now we're in the age of Aquarius, or we're entering the age of Aquarius. That's the sign of the man.
Right. So and ages are different from your periods of the year. They take up a much larger time span.
Yes, because the ages on the zodiac wheel go like this. I mean, not the ages, the month. They go like this. So it starts in Aries, then Taurus, then Gemini, then Cancer. When you're doing the ages, though, it's 2,160 years that we're in an age, and it goes backwards. It's a slippage. It's a precession. So it goes backwards. Wow. So that's why we went from Taurus to Aries to Pisces to Aquarius.
Aquarius. Okay.
Right?
The age of Aquarius.
The Synod of Jamnia. And again, people always want to get, oh, I want to see where you get your information from, or this, that, and the other thing. This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay, I just copied this. The Synod of Jamnia, I'm not going to read to you what it says. I'm just going to tell you what it is. The Synod of Jamnia was taking place in 100 AD. The reason they put it together was because the Old Testament wasn't canonized. So all the books, how they're in order now and have been in order in forever, weren't always like that. We're talking 100 AD. 100 AD, they got together to canonize this. Now, something interesting happened during the Synod of Jamnia, because the Gospel of Mark came out 30 years prior in 70 AD, around the time of the destruction of the Second Temple. The Gospel of Mark came out, and they were deliberating whether or not to put the Gospel of Mark in the Old Testament, and they decided against it. But this was very much done by people. This is why Genesis is first, when it shouldn't be, because the book of Job is actually the oldest book in the Bible by a lot. It's not even close. It's older than Genesis. It's old. It's the oldest story in the Bible. So this is from the Encyclopedia Britannica, where they talk of the Synod of Jamnia, where they put the books in order. Now, Genesis 32:30. Why is this giving me a hard time? Okay. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life was preserved. Notice, it's Genesis 32:30. There's the 30. You can't teach about God and you can't see God until you turn 30. That's the ancient way. Now, what are we talking about here? Well, Peniel becomes pineal. And if you look at the eye of Horus on the left, and on the right is a sagittal cut. So that's a split cut right here. When you open it up, that's what it looks like. That's where it comes from. That's the pineal gland.
And they would have known that, because even though Christians say embalming's bad, they did that all the time with their mummies.
Exactly. And you can see, you see the eyebrow ridge above it? That's the corpus callosum in the brain. And that little nipple thing is the pineal gland. So the interior of the pineal gland has retinal tissue composed of photoreceptor cells and is filled with vitreous fluid, just like the eyes. It is actually wired to the visual cortex. In certain reptiles, it has a cornea and a lens. So there are calcium carbonate crystals within the pineal gland that change in pressure to something called the piezoelectric effect. So what that basically means, Melissa, is if I were to juice your pineal gland onto a tray, all the liquid would come out. There would be crystals in it. If I were then to dry it out and hit the crystals with like a hammer or something, colors would fly out of it. That's what's in our mind. That's what's in our brain.
That's really fascinating.
It is. It releases DMT, which is twice in life. Well, technically it does it every night, but it only releases DMT on 2 occasions. The first is when we sleep, because that's what causes us to dream. Many people who've had their pineal gland removed for whatever reason all say that they can't dream. This is our connection to wherever we go. I'm not even going to get into that right now. But DMT is released when you dream, and DMT is released as your body is shutting down and you're getting ready to pass away. So it helps move you into the next dimension. Now, in many Buddhist traditions, 49 days is the total mourning period, with prayers conducted every 7 days across 7 weeks. These Buddhists believe that rebirth takes place within 49 days after death, right? The Jews have a 49-day time period too. It's called Lag BaOmer. It's where they count the Omer. The Christians or the Catholics have one too, 49 days. It's called the Pentecost. That's after Easter, and that's when you start doing your, communions and all that kind of stuff. It's a 49-day time period. Some will say 50, but it's actually technically 49 days. So 49 for everything. Why? Well, it just so happens that with modern day technology right now, we can see that the pineal gland becomes visible on the 49th day of gestation. That is when the soul enters the body. So now follow me on this one, Melissa. You know how all these right-wing people are talking about a 6-week abortion ban?
Right.
Right. Well, that's 42 days. Because at the very top, they know this. At the very top, they understand this science. They understand this. What do they understand? They understand that the soul enters the body at 7 weeks. And karmically, if you were to kill the baby, you are responsible for it. However, if it's before then, like 6 weeks, you're not, because there's no soul in the body. They knew this. They all knew this. They all worship this. They all worship the 49-day time period.
That's really interesting. I'm only abortion in certain medical extreme cases. I don't think it should just be, hey, everybody sleep with everybody and go have a bunch of abortions. I'm totally
well, I agree with that too. I agree with that too. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do with abortion. I'm only going to explain to you what they know, and then you make your own decision.
Right.
I don't think anybody should be telling anyone else what to do. Personally, I'm against it unless it's rare occasions.
Yeah, it's just become too commonplace. That's all.
Yeah, rape and incest. Yeah, but at the same time, the elites use it because this is population control. This is a great form of population control.
Absolutely. I have one question.
Yeah.
In the audience, I'm going to present to you now because it does talk about the Mormon stuff that you asked last time. So I'm just going to take a pause and we'll continue with this. But it says, question. The last time I think you said this encoding was also in the Mormon book. Since the Book of Mormon is basically a modern creation, why would the encoding be included?
Okay, so this is going to be a 3-part series. The third part of the series is when I take you through 6,000 years of these encodings from every ancient holy text that we've ever had.
Okay.
So I'm going to show you the Bible is not original by any means. It has been borrowed from everything. For example, you know how like in the Bible they'll say like if you hit a slave and he's not dead, then you have to pay ... things of that nature.
Yeah.
Like punishments and those sort of things. That comes from the Code of Hammurabi, which is Babylonian. All that comes from there. If you read the Code of Hammurabi, you'll see all these punishments, which I also go into too, by the way, later on. But let me continue this real quick. So hell is the flaming inferno, right? This is the problem with Christians. This is what they all struggle with. They struggle with anytime they get an original thought or anytime they feel like they're losing faith, they're brought back to this. Hell is the flaming inferno, right? It's a flaming pit of hell where everyone's going to burn for eternity if you're not thinking and saying the right things, right? So let me ask you, Melissa, how do we detect pain?
Our neurological
system
or brain?
The nervous system. The brain, the spinal cord, the nerve endings, and the neurons. Let me ask you a question. This is how we detect pain: cold, hot, pleasure, things of that nature. This is how we detect it with our nervous system. So when you die and you give up your body and you become a spirit and you no longer have a body to sense physicality, how are you going to burn alive if you can't sense it?
Well, you wouldn't. Not if you're in spirit. Maybe they believe there's some place in between. I have no idea, but you wouldn't.
You wouldn't. Absolutely. It's the biggest lie.
I mean, you might see, like, I know there's some people who have near-death experiences and they see a hellish thing, and it's not that they experience burning, they just experience the emotional, like, of watching it. It's like makes them
Well,
scared.
these are archetypes. These are archetypes.
Yeah.
These are archetypes. These are Jungian archetypes. Why do you think? Remember how I told you that the original face of Jesus was Caesar Borgia?
Yeah.
So why is his face the same face that everyone sees? Because they're archetypes. They're archetypes.
And it's been repeated all the time for a long period of time.
Exactly. The reason you see when you're dying, you see loved ones and family members, is because these are archetypes that come down that help you move on to the next passage. Because Earth is basically one giant LSD trip, if you think about it. It's wild. Right. It's one LSD. And you need to heal when you pass from all the trauma that you've experienced here.
I guess that's why you're supposed to deal with it here, I guess. But do you believe in the Jungian idea that it's a collective conscious where all this stuff comes from?
Oh, absolutely. Have you ever seen the energy grid that goes over the world?
No, I haven't.
You've never seen the energy grid?
No, not that I know of, unless I've seen it and I just don't remember.
Okay. Well, basically, I think that we used to transmit information that way. That's why, an example, by the way, you always see like Quetzalcoatl, or in the Vatican, you see the Church of the Pine Cone. I'm going to get into this later. It's always a pine cone. You always see the pine cone because the pineal gland looks like a pine cone. They knew this.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they worship the pine cone. But my point simply is this, is that if you're not going to burn for all hell, then you have to make sense of this. So all they did was, again, I'm going to show you this time and time again. They just inverted something and perverted it. That's all they did. It's the same thing with the swastika. Okay, the swastika, all they did was mirror it and pervert it. But when it comes down to hell is actually winter on Earth. And I'm going to show you how that is.
It's like Hades,
Right, watch this.
It's a cold place.
The idea of a fiery pit where you burn for all eternity is ridiculous when you think about it logically. Hell is actually winter on Earth. Why? Well, it's cold. The vegetation and beautiful flowers and plants are dead. The trees shed their leaves and bear no fruit. It's freezing cold out. People tend to get sick more often. Dangerous animals, if they're not hibernating, are starving and scrounging for food. It's dangerous for humans. The Italian word for winter is inverno. Flip a letter and pervert it, you get inferno.
Inferno, yeah.
You get the concept of hell. This picture on the right is Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy. Satan's in the bottom level of hell. Is he on fire? Is he just talking to people and having them burn other people, or is it a frozen tundra?
Yeah, it's pretty cold there.
See, Dante knew Pluto. The reason it's so cold in hell, the story in Dante goes, is that if you look at the devil, he's frozen up to his waist in a lake of ice. He can't move because every time it starts to melt, his wings flap and it freezes it over again. So Dante knew hell was winter. The Bible even says it, right? The Christians will tell you there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Well, Melissa, when do you chatter your teeth? In the cold or the heat?
When you're cold as heck.
It's the same thing. This is what they do. They just invert it and pervert it. So I'm not going to read this one. Satan and Lucifer. Satan doesn't exist. He's not a red devil with a tail and a pitchfork. In fact, the earliest paintings of him in the 900s, he was actually blue. Hence where we get the Duke blue devils from. The Hebrew word for Satan is Hashatan, which literally translates to adversary. In proper context, two competing sports teams are Satans to one another. That's all they are. Two UFC fighters, one is Satan, the other is Satan. That's all it means.
Right.
The Christians will call him the accuser later on, not the adversary. They'll call him the accuser. Lucifer, he is known as the light bringer. In Genesis 1:3, and God said, "Let there be light." How can there be light without the light bearer, the light bringer? Lucifer is immediately mentioned in the Bible, if not by name, but by action and purpose. Lucifer is also known as the morning star. The morning star is also known as the planet Venus. The reasoning is if you go out and you look at the sky just before the sunrise in the east, you'll see a bright light directly over it. That's Venus. It announces the arrival of God's only begotten Son, the light of the world. Lucifer is also known to have a pentagram. That's his symbol. And what Christians don't seem to realize is that the pentagram, in its earliest iterations, was a Christian symbol. It wasn't an evil symbol towards Christians. It was a Christian symbol because there's 5 points on it, and it represented the 5 points of infliction on Jesus. So the pentagram, there's nothing to be scared about Continuing with Lucifer as Venus, if you follow Earth and Venus's orbit around the sun in a year's time, they almost connect at 5 points. You connect that, you get the pentagram. You see?
Right.
This is the pentagram. This is Venus and Earth.
So it's like the relationship in orbit between Venus and Earth forms a pentagram around the sun if you connect it. That is crazy.
It's fantastic, though, right?
It is. It is. I mean, like, crazy good.
Okay. Here's Baphomet. Let's talk about Baphomet. Notice at the bottom right here, Eliphas Levi's name. He's the first person to invert the pentagram point down. He gave us Baphomet. Look at the head. It's a goat. The goat is Capricorn. It's also a man. The man is Aquarius. Those are connecting signs on the zodiac. The ancients knew that the divine was both masculine and feminine, left brain masculine and right brain feminine. That's why Baphomet has breasts. Because it doesn't make sense unless you understand that this is not a demonic entity. It's the joining of the male and the female. That's what they're trying to tell you here. And look, he's even doing the peace sign that I told you about in the last episode, right? The Kemetic peace sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got a pentagram on his head. Right? There's nothing to fear about this stuff. So this is the
a lot of people see him as like, I mean, he's got breasts, he's half female, he's half male, he's got an animal head, he's got wings on. They don't like that. I can understand it.
It's as simple as that, but the truth is a lot easier. Again, this is just metaphors. This is the whole they told things symbolically and we take them literally quote that I always say. This is the same thing. Now this is the rudimentary phallic symbol. The original penis, so to speak, is known as the spear. I don't think it's the spear. I think it's the I forget what it is. But it's basically this is the triangle. The top point represents the penis. This right here represents the womb. This is the chalice, the feminine. This is the Star of David. It's the joining of the two. It's a hermaphrodite, so to speak. So there is more sex magic in the Bible than you think. This right here, for everyone looking, is Solomon's temple. This is how it was built. And it even shows you the cubits at the bottom to show you that it was built precisely as the Bible explained it. But I'm going to invert this and I'm going to explain it to you. Okay? This is Solomon's temple. But if you look down here, doesn't it kind of look like a rudimentary penis going in a vagina?
Yeah, I guess you could see that. Yeah.
See? The porch is the base of the penis. The holy place is the shaft. The Holy of Holies is the head. And then you have the cherub and you have the ark. That's where the Torah, which is the DNA or the information, is stored. And then you have the store chambers with the two openings right here. These are the fallopian tubes.
Okay.
And look, Boaz and Jachin, they're the two testicles right here. Solomon's temple is sex magic. This is a penis entering in a vagina. And you can't really, well, let me see here. It's important to note that Solomon is not a name of a person. Solomon didn't exist. It's a combination of three words for the sun, as everything is, because everything's about the sun. Sol, which is sun in Latin. Om, which is the sun, which is the light of the syllable Om, as advised in the Upanishads. And On was the city of light, or Heliopolis in Greek, Solomon. Sol, Om, On. In fact, On was the city of light in Heliopolis. That's where he went to get enlightened. So, Melissa, when you go into a bedroom and you can't see anything, don't you have to turn the lights on?
Well, yeah, I mean, you would.
That's where it comes from. Samson and Delilah. Samson is Shimshon, which means little son in Hebrew, whereas the root of Delilah is Lila, which means night. The story of Delilah is that she cuts Samson's hair, which takes away his powers, and he ends up eyes gouged out and going blind. So it's the story of the sun going blind. However, this is just the story of the sun going into the underworld, which is at night when it goes into the lower part of the, when it goes under the equator and starts going to the underworld. It's the eternal battle between the sun and night, or set from the Egyptians. That's why we have a sun set. Because they bury this in math, they bury this in language, they bury this in everything. Jonah in the body of a whale. In Hebrew, the words are dag gadol, which translates to great giant fish. He's in it for 3 days. It's the 3 days you see recurring in the Bible over and over again. The sun walking sideways like the crab for 3 days. Daniel in the lion's den. It's a story revolving around 2 signs in astrology. Daniel the man, Aquarius, and the lions, which are Leo, the lion. In the zodiac, they are opposing signs. You remember the opposing signs and the connecting signs? How they'll always be showing? It's always going to show that pattern. Abraham and Sarah. Abraham's name was Abram before he was made Abraham. Abram is a combination of 2 words. Abba, which means father in Hebrew, and Ram, which means ram. Father Ram, father of the people of Aries, the Jews. Abram goes back to Brahma. Sarah goes back to Sarai, which goes back to Sarah or Saraswati. So Abraham and Sarah are Brahma and Saraswati. This is Hinduism. This is where it comes from. There is so much going on in these books that you guys have to understand. You just got to get your literal mind out of this. Lot and Lot's wife in Sodom and Gomorrah. In the ancient times, people were paid with salt. It's where the word salary comes from. Salt. Why? Because it preserved the meat. And when you killed a cow and didn't eat it in one day, it would go bad. Salt kept it viable for longer. There was no refrigeration back then. Salt was the highest currency aside from gold and silver. So when she turns into a pile of salt, you have to think about it like she left Las Vegas, the gambling, the hookers, and the debauchery, turning back one more time from McCarran Airport and turning into a pile of money. That's what it is. They're like, why did she turn into a pile of salt? Well, humans are made of salt. Everything's basically a salt or a protein in our body anyway. No, salt was the highest currency. That was like leaving a pile of gold coins. So there's a town in Israel called Megiddo, which a 3rd century church was found under another church. It's one of the oldest churches known to man. In the center of the floor is the mosaic of the 2 fish Pisces. Megiddo is also the root of the word Armageddon, and that is where Armageddon is supposed to end. The last war is supposed to take place in Megiddo. But look at this. This is a church of Jesus Christ. And in the middle of it, we even know who commissioned the 2 fish. I forget his name, but we even know the name of the person who commissioned the 2 fish. This is a church from the 200s, and they knew Christ was Pisces, the 2 fish.
I was going to say Pisces, yeah.
The zodiac surrounds the Stufetta del Bebbiena, the papal bath. Okay, so when you were asking me, do you think the church leaders know this? They do. That's why that's the case. The U.S. was not founded on a Christian nation. I get this all the time. Christianity is the most perverted system that ever shone on man. That's Thomas Jefferson. I found Christian dogma unintelligible. That's Benjamin Franklin. This would be the best of all possible worlds if there were no religion in it. That's John Adams. The Constitution is the guide, which I will never abandon. That's George Washington. The U.S. was founded upon secular values, but there's more. Let me give you a couple more. And the day will come when the mystical generation of Jesus, by the supreme being as his father in the womb of a virgin, will be classed with the fable of the generations of Minerva in the brain of Jupiter. Thomas Jefferson in a letter to John Adams. What influence, in fact, have Christian ecclesiastical establishments had on society? In many instances, they have been upholding the thrones of political tyranny. In no instance have they been sent as the guardians of the liberties of the people. That's James Madison. The purpose of separation and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe in blood for centuries. That's James Madison. And this is my favorite quote right now. Remember, this was written 250, 300 years ago. They knew this 300 years ago. The Christian religion is a parody on the worship of the sun, in which they put a man called Christ in the place of the sun and pay him the adoration originally paid to the sun. That's Thomas Paine. Does it sound like the founding fathers were based on Judeo-Christian values?
Well, here's what I think. I mean, they are obviously very skeptical of it, but I mean, they were raised as Christians. So I think they're going to have inherently some Christian values. Like they're just going to have it. They may be critical of it, but they can't escape that they were raised in Christianity. It's hard to escape. Even if I can criticize it all day long, but I'm still raised in a Christian nation, so I'm subconsciously going to do things and believe things like I'll say, "Oh God," or Jesus. I'm going to do that.
This stuff that I'm sharing with you, Melissa. Let me put it to you this way: Christians don't like it. Jews don't like it. Muslims don't like it. Atheists don't like it. Atheists,
well, of course not.
Atheists don't like it. But here's the
But
thing.
I know people in the audience are going to say, well, we've got in God we trust on our money. And I mean, there's so much occult stuff just in America alone with some of the monuments. And I mean, it's there. But
Mhm.
I don't, if we don't believe in a religion, what do we believe in? I guess I mean,
I
and
showed
even
you
if,
how non-religiously you can believe in a creator. I showed
mm-hmm,
you proof
mm-hmm,
of that. The problem is the Bible does a really bad job explaining what God is, and people think that that's it, but they don't look any further. And people are fearful; they're scared to go to hell, even though I just explained to
right.
you what hell was. People are terrified to go to hell, and that's why they will never leave.
I honestly just think no matter what, humans will form some kind of religion. I just think it's something we do.
Well, that's what we have to fight. Now, check this out. This is the swastika, right?
Hmm.
The swastika.
And just for a note, YouTube, everybody, we're not promoting Nazism. This is just for the context of the lecture.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry that you even have to say that.
I know.
But all right, the swastika, if you read Wikipedia, for example, talks about its origins of ancient times, from ancient religions and its peaceful meaning. Again, tweak it a little, mirror image it, and pervert the meaning, and you get the modern day peace we see that will never be reclaimed as peaceful symbol. But it goes further than that. The swastika isn't Buddhist or Hindu, Babylonian or Syrian or Sumerian. It's actually astrology. This is the oldest swastika that we found. It's 17,000 years old, and it's from the Ukraine. You want to know where the swastika comes from?
What was that used for? What is that?
Let me show you. It's the Big Dipper rotating around the North Star. As
Oh
shown
my
here,
goodness.
as shown
Oh
here on
my
the
goodness.
solstices and
It's like a
equinoxes.
ladle. Oh my goodness.
Shown as the solstices and the equinoxes. You connect them,
Wow.
you get the swastika. It's all astrology. There's nothing to fear about the swastika, and it's certainly not as
So it's
young as
just,
people present it.
well, Hitler perverted it, but yeah.
Mhm.
It's really interesting though that Hitler, who we are not idolizing YouTube, grabbed onto the Aryan thing.
Right.
And Aries, it's kind of interesting that I mean they were totally eclectic and occultish anyways. I mean
Right.
they were right into it, so
No, they
it's
were.
interesting
They
that
were
they
very
used
good.
it.
Mm-hmm.
What is the Big Dipper significant of?
That's a good question. So the
Mm-hmm.
North Star is Polaris that you have it. It just basically this symbol marked the seasons of the years,
Mm-hmm.
right? So for example, you see Polaris and then you see the Big Dipper like top left doing this, you know you're in summer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another way to keep the clock, keep the calendar. But you put it all together, it's a swastika. Look at this.
Yeah.
I Googled, which I shouldn't have done, but I Googled when did Saturn first get discovered? And it tells you 1610. Galileo Galilei spots Saturn's rings through a telescope, but mistakes them from a triple planet. In 1610, Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei was the first to gaze at Saturn through a telescope. To his surprise, he saw a pair of objects on either side of the planet. Saturn was discovered in 1610. That's what Google tells you, right? Well, what about the ancient Saturnalia festival and the basis of the Abraham Hebrew religions? Even if you don't know it as deep as I do, you've heard of Saturnalia worship.
Yeah, it was discovered. It was known about way before 1610.
Right? Just how Julian the Apostate, 1700 years ago, talked about the sun being the fiery chariot that the planets dance around. See, the internet lies to you. This is Saturnalia worship, all this. This on the top left you see is the Jew with what's called the tefillin. You see the black cube on his head.
Right.
On the right of that is the black cube in Mecca that the Muslims walk around. On the right is the black cube that you wear when you graduate. The Nintendo GameCube is black. Literally, the Sega Saturn is a black cube. The judge's robe. This is all Saturn worship. This is all Saturn worship.
So you're saying that Moss, that what's that called that they worship? That's Saturn worship, and they don't realize it.
It's Saturn worship, yes.
Do you think they would be upset if you told them that?
I think it would drive them insane.
Yeah, well, I think they'd
the
probably
only
try to
people that
kill
really
you.
flock to my work and gravitate towards me, because people do. The only people that really do that are people who are conflicted in church or people who want to understand the Bible makes sense in a specific sort of way.
That's and they're not afraid of burning in hell.
You have to defeat that first. Look, this is why women have earrings and men have wedding rings, because Saturn has rings. Women would wear their earrings because they were told they had to listen to their god, and their god was Saturn. So they'd get their ears pierced and wear rings. Men would wear wedding rings because, again, in front of Saturn, you pledge your fidelity to Saturn. That's why you wear a wedding ring. This is all Saturn worship.
I don't wear any jewelry, so I guess I'm not worshiping Saturn.
This right here is Göbekli Tepe. Everybody's heard of Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah.
Right? This is showing you an astronomical observatory, is what it's showing you, and that's 12,000 years old. This is Stonehenge. It's the same thing.
I've been there.
Notice how on the summer solstice, the way the light comes in perfectly?
I was there in the winter, at Christmas time in December. It was cold.
So this is the Sphinx right here, right? The Sphinx is half lion, half man. Those are opposing signs in the zodiac. But even so, further than that, on the back of the Sphinx, it's smooth. It's not. It doesn't look like it was hit by sand for thousands and thousands of years. It looks like it was hit by water. Well, when was the last time there was water in that area? It's 12,000 years ago. It's one of the driest. Well, here's the other thing too. 12,000 years ago, if you look at where the Sphinx was facing, it was facing the constellation Leo, the lion. So 12,000 years ago, they understood this.
Some people say that they think originally it was a lion's head and that it got carved down.
I've seen a lion's head. I've seen Anubis.
Because look how small that head is.
Anubis is the dog god from the Egyptians. That's why dog backwards is God, because their god was Anubis, the dog. That's where that comes from. But yeah, no, at one point it was a lion. This was definitely remade. I mean, the earliest pictures we have pictures of people 150 years ago coming across the desert. I mean, I think Napoleon even did that, and only the head was sticking out because the rest was buried. They had to excavate the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it faced the age of Leo around the same time that the back was smooth, when the water would have been running over it for thousands of years. What are pyramids?
Well, they're pointing to stars, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's Orion's belt.
Right.
That's Orion's belt. That's what the pyramids were made for. This is known as the Antikythera mechanism. They found this. They couldn't figure out what it was. They found this on a Greek ship. Was it a Greek ship or an Egyptian ship? I can't remember. Don't quote me on it. But it was one of their ships. And they found this thing. And when they pieced it together and figured it out, it was a modern day computer, is what it was. It tracked the sun and the stars' movements.
Wow.
So now let me show you how the astrotheology, with the story of the stars, as I've explained it to you, play out in society. When do you kill John F. Kennedy? November 22nd. That's the handover date from Scorpio to Sagittarius. Remember, Scorpio's the betrayer. He was betrayed, and he dies in Sagittarius because the sun dies in Sagittarius on December 21st.
So are you saying they plan that assassinations are planned around these dates as well?
Oh my God, I have so many examples.
Because there's no, I mean, I think obviously I think the elites of some sort planned that. I don't think it was the guy just did it all on his own. I think it was groomed.
No, let me make the case for that. Why is January 1st New Year's Day? Neil deGrasse Tyson has gone on record saying nothing special happens on January 1st or December 31st. He's wrong, and I've tried to call him out on it. Something interesting happens. It's our new year in the world because at midnight on December 31st, if you look up as high as you can, do this this year. Go out and look as high as you can into the sky. The top of the heavens, you'll see Sirius at its height. That's our dog star. That's our binary star. It doesn't get any higher than that. So here's what you do. Watch this. You have Sirius up here, and then you follow a straight line down in its Earth. And then you find a straight line down, and it's the sun. So it's this dropping mechanism right here that shows you an alignment. You know where else you see that alignment?
Yeah.
The dropping of the ball in Times Square. That's what it's showing you. Why did they drop a ball? Why doesn't anyone ask that? No, nobody cares. It's just, we're just dropping the ball. This is why, because it shows the alignment.
Wow.
Watch this. Why do they always crash the stock market in Libra? The panic of 1907, October 1907. Wall Street crash of 1929, October 24th, 1929. That's the handover date to Scorpio. Black Monday, October 19th, 1987. Friday the 14th, mini crash, October 13th, 1989. Stock market downturn of 2002, October 9, 2002. 10% in most of the world's indices dropped, October 24th, 2008. That's another handover date to Scorpio. Let me ask you a question. What are the chances that all are, and this is fact, you can do your own research on this, people, but why are all the stock markets crashed in Libra? It's because Libra is the judgment. It's the scales. We're being judged. That's what happens. They force crash it then. And also, did you know that all these dates, a Republican was in office? So,
that's really interesting because everybody keeps talking about the stock market crashing on different, and I always tell people, I'm like, why do you judge the stock, like the stock market? Like they're saying like Trump stocks are going down to this. I'm like, it doesn't matter. They planned that anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's all planned. And it's interesting that they crash it in October and then in November, oftentimes, not every year here, but in November, there's always an election.
Mm-hmm. But let me tell you this right now. If Trump gets back in office, next Libra, there'll be a crash. Yeah. You could do your research and all this. It's always in Libra. It's not even always in October. It's always in Libra. It's always in Libra. The judge, the scales, we're being judged. And they crash it then, and there's always a Republican in office. Always. So keep your eye on that. Now that's something that you know. Look at the largest daily point games. They all happened in Aries, which is the opposing sign. Aries.
Wow, they're doing some crazy magic, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Now check this out. Here's the Roman Catholic Catechism 2116. All forms of divination are to be rejected. Recourse to Satan or demons, conjuring up the dead, or other practices falsely supposed to unveil the future. Consulting horoscopes, astrology, palm readings, interpretation of omens and lots, the phenomena of clairvoyance, and recourse to mediums all conceal a desire for power over time, history, and in the last analysis, other human beings, as well as a wish to conciliate hidden powers. They contradict the honor, respect, and loving fear that we owe to God alone. This right here is a Roman Catholic catechism. It's like an amendment to all their laws of the Bible. 2116 tells you astrology is evil. That's why all the Catholics refuse to look at my work. Because they tell you right here in the Catholic Catechism that astrology is evil. But have I not made a case so far of how much astrology is actually there?
Well, yes, of course. And obviously they don't want you to look at it.
They don't. They don't want you to understand your heavens. They don't want you to understand where you are. Now check this out. Church, don't be discouraged. I stole this. I follow the wildest people on Twitter, like the most absolutely wild people, like far left, far right. I like to understand what's going on in people's minds. This is from a Christian. Church, don't be discouraged. The real Feast of Trumpets is actually today for us. The new moon needs to be in the constellation of Libra. This is going to happen on September 19th at 1:20 a.m. Israel time. So it would be at 6:20 p.m. EST for us. Please keep praying and looking up. They're looking for signs in the heavens. But when I do it, there's a problem. But when Christians do it, it's not a problem. You see the hypocrisy in this?
Yeah. It's kind of bizarre.
It is suggested that the Prophet Muhammad stated, whoever seeks knowledge from the stars is seeking one of the branches of witchcraft, that of which is inherently forbidden in Islam. This is why Muslims don't look into this.
They forbid a lot of things in Islam.
So let me show you how else they use it in society, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You know the Phoenix Suns, the basketball team? You don't have to be a sports fan to at least know that they exist.
Yeah.
So the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix is the story of Christ, the sun, a flaming form of life that dies and rises from his ashes. Jesus was the sun who died for 3 days and came back to life. Jesus is the Phoenix. Jesus is the sun. It's the same thing. That's why it's the Phoenix Suns. Now, what about the women's Phoenix team? the phoenix Mercury. And Mercury is the ruling planet of Virgo, the only woman sign. Go figure, right? So how else are
Interesting.
things encoded in everyday life and entertainment? Do you ever see the movie Face Off?
I have not seen it. I remember it. They had Nicolas Cage and John Travolta like swap faces or something.
Yeah. Okay, so
But
the 1990s movie Face Off, starring Nicolas Cage and John Travolta. Well, what are their characters' names? Nicolas Cage's character is Castor Troy. His brother is Pollux Troy in the movie. That's literally the names of Gemini. The two brothers in Gemini are Castor and Pollux.
Wow.
Right? Now, what about Travolta? His name was Sean Archer. What's the Archer, Melissa? It's the man with the bow and the arrow.
Right. So is that Sagittarius?
Exactly. And those are opposing signs.
Oh my God. Oh, wow.
What about Harry Potter? There are a ton of characters in Harry Potter that are named after stars or constellations. You have Draco Malfoy, Pollux Black, Sirius Black, Andromeda Black, Regulus Black, Arcturus Black, Cassiopeia Black, Orion, and Cygnus Black. Algol, also known as the Demon Star. That's in astrology. I'm not going to actually talk about birth charts and things of that nature, but Algol is known as the Demon Star. It has a history of it, and it's fixed in Taurus. And it's known as in Batman, the evil character's name is literally Ra's al Ghul, who gets his name from Algol.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever remember this song, The Cranberries Zombie?
Of course, yes.
Do you remember the video?
No, I don't.
So the 1990s song video for Cranberry Zombie. Here's Dolores O'Riordan. She's painted gold like the sun, and her head dressing represents the rays of the sun, much like Jesus in the crown of thorns. But is it that? Well, what's the next scene? It's the sun on the cross with a bunch of little Sagittarius ready to take its life.
Wow.
Okay, so they build this into music videos. They build this into
there was a lot of that kind of symbolism in the sort of alternative music. I mean, I remember seeing it and listening to a lot of this stuff, and there was a lot of Christian symbolism.
Right.
That is obviously.
This is astrology right here.
More ancient than Christianity.
Right. In fact, the very next cutscene after this is one of those little guys aiming the bow and arrow at her. So, what about Katy Perry's Dark Horse?
Dark Horse, yeah.
We see the Eye of Horus, the Illuminati symbol. But the Eye of Horus, when you see celebrities doing this, guys, or this, or this, or this, or this, I explain all of that. Maybe I could do that on a later episode with you. There's nothing to fear about these symbols. They represent good things. They just want you scared. Now check this out. This is
why do they want you scared though? If it represents something good, because they like to hurt things.
Because people who are fearful are easier to control.
Okay.
This is Adam.
Be not afraid, people. Be not afraid.
This is Adam and God. This is Michelangelo's creation of man. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look at the left, it kind of looks like he's sitting on Earth a little bit from what he's sitting on in the background. The green, the water. But now look at God. Look at God. Now look at what God's sitting in. Doesn't that look like a hemisphere of a human brain?
It does. And there's a whole bunch of those like angels that carry him up, or
there's 12 of them. Where else do we
12 of them?
12 zodiac signs, 12 cranial nerves. This is the human brain. Look at where God is sitting. Where he is sitting is exactly where the pineal gland is.
I was going to say, yeah.
So this is God in heaven, or God with the 12 zodiac signs coming down through the pineal gland, giving life to man on earth. That's what Michelangelo is showing you hundreds of years ago, and people have no idea.
Now, and Michelangelo consciously knows that he's showing this to you?
He does. This is they embellish this. They put this in there for people to figure out, why? Because if I were doing this, Melissa, if we were having this conversation 100 years ago, they would have burned us at the stake.
Of course they would.
Do you know what I mean? So they had to be clever.
I'm glad it's just cancel culture today.
Right? Look at this. This is Da Vinci's Last Supper. Let me show you this real quick. All the way, there's 4 sets of 3. Those are the seasons in the year. It starts in Aries and it ends in Pisces. Aries is all the way on the left. He's wearing something green because that's when things start coming back to life. The grass comes back to life, and the land comes back to life, and it comes back to green. Now, if you skip Taurus and you go to Gemini, you'll see the white man with his hands up like this. They're twins. He's telling you there's two of them. Then if you go after Gemini to Cancer, he's not doing anything. But then you look at Leo, the white man. What is he doing? Well, he's right next to the woman. Leo is right next to Virgo. Okay? What is he doing? What is Leo doing? He's pointing at her Adam's apple. He's showing you that she doesn't have one. And then Jesus is the sun in the middle.
Yeah.
And then you have Libra, right? He's holding his hands out for the scales. They buried all this information in there. And people
are you saying one of the 12 disciples was like they're not real people? That's Virgo, and they all represent astrological signs.
They do. Would you like?
And that's why people talked about that. They thought that because it was feminine, that it was Mary Magdalene or something like that. Which she could be, that symbol. But that's interesting. Virgo.
Now, here's the interesting thing too. Gemini. Let me explain to you. We know that we've already explained that Judas is Scorpio, right? He's the betrayer, right? Okay. Would you agree that John the Baptist would be Aquarius, the man with the water pitcher pouring it out, baptizing everyone?
Sure.
Okay. Gemini, the guy holding his hands up right here, is Thomas Didymus. In Hebrew, Ta'om or Tom in English means twin. And Didymus is a Greek word which means twin. So twin, they're the two twins. He's Gemini. The fourth one that I'll give you an example of is Simon Peter. Now, you're Melissa. People probably call you Mel, right?
They better not.
Or Liz, or whatever. I'm just giving you an example. Thomas is Tom.
Like they better not.
Thomas is
some do make that mistake.
Thomas is Tom. Michael is Mike. So all of these have names, but Simon to Peter doesn't make sense unless you understand astrology. So you got to understand that Simon Peter was a fisherman. That was his job. And who's the fish?
Jesus.
No. Pisces, right?
Pisces. Right. Pisces. Sorry.
I see where you got that answer.
See where I'm going?
Okay, so Pisces is the fish. He's the fisherman, he's the fish. But now the ruling planet of Pisces is Jupiter or Jew-Peter. Simon Peter, Jew-Peter, Jupiter.
Okay.
All of them have a story. So in fact, I posted this on Facebook a few months back, and I was banned from going live or joining groups because they bot flagged this and said that I was posting porn when all I was doing was showing different.
Mother Mary, the liberals can wear a pussy hat, right?
Right. Mother Mary is the divine feminine, the vagina. Mother Mary is the sacred female. Yeah. And they show you this. They show you that she's the vagina in all these pictures.
Yeah.
People have no idea what they're looking at. So modern day things revolving around astrology. Mermaids. Combination of the man sign in Aquarius or the woman sign in Virgo and the fish sign in Pisces. Aquarius and Pisces are connecting signs. So whenever you want a merman, you just mix Aquarius and Pisces, the man and the fish. Those are connecting signs. You want a woman, you mix Virgo, the woman, and fish, Pisces. Those are opposing signs. So they're still making the patterns. Bullfighting or bull riding. Aquarius, the man, and Taurus, the bull. Jousting is 2 times Sagittarius. Lion taming. Aquarius, the man, and Leo, the lion. Those are opposing signs. Fishing. Aquarius, the man, and Pisces, the fish. They're connecting signs. Virgo, the woman, and Pisces, the fish. These are opposing signs. So let me talk about this part, which right here I love to explain. Homosexuality in the Bible, right? Because that is like the biggest argument that the liberals have against the religious. They think that they hate them for. So everybody knows that Leviticus 18:22. However, is it really what is said in there? The Greek word arxenokotai shows up in 2 different versions of the Bible in Greek, but was not translated to mean homosexual until 1946. In the 1800s, the German Bible said, "Man shall not lie with young boys as he does with a woman, for it is an abomination." That's Leviticus 18:22. Same with Leviticus 20:13, young boys. 1 Corinthians, the word arsenokotai And it's important to mention that the Bible was written in Hebrew, but everybody at the time knew that if you were an intellect, you wrote and you read in Greek. That's why the New Testament was written in Greek. So 1 Corinthians became boy molesters will not inherit the kingdom of God. If you were to grab Martin Luther's original German translation from 1534, they use the word Nabenschänder. Naben is a boy, and Schänder is molester. The first time homosexual appears in a German translation is 1983. So this is information that people need to understand, because there's nothing inherently wrong with homosexuality. Like, you don't want to do it, don't do it. But it's not going to get you to hell from Yahweh if you engage in it, because this is not, you see what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. King David and Jonathan were both homosexuals in the Bible. He loved Jonathan more than women. 2 Samuel 1:26. They kissed each other and cried together. 1 Samuel 20:41. Jonathan took off his clothes in front of David. 1 Samuel 18:3-4. He kept David with him and did not allow him to go back to his father's house. 1 Samuel 18-2. King David was bisexual in this story. In fact, people read King James, right? The King James Bible, they swear by it. You know, he was a demonologist. He was a demonologist before he got into the Bible. This is his book. You can get it on Amazon still.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. 72
So,
virgins.
but here's the thing, though. It seems like most of the Bible is talking about the sacred feminine and reproduction and all that stuff, and they're really pushing that part. Why would they then push homosexuality as okay?
Because it takes the focus off boy molesters, off child molestation, which is the biggest problem in the country.
It is, but it's like,
because if boy molesters or pedophilia is not demonized in the Bible, then they can get away with it. But if it was specifically called out in the Bible, that would be a different story, don't you think?
yeah, it is, and it is obviously called out. But I would think they would say all forms of non-heterosexual sex is not okay, because you can start one place and lead down another. You know what I mean? Like a slippery slope.
Well, sure. So the 72 virgins, that's what all the Muslims do it for, right? When they go on a killing rampage. Mm-hmm. There's a star called 70 Virginis that I show below, which borders Virgo. That's 70. There's one virgin in Virgo, so that's 71. Plus the virgin you marry on Earth, 72. These are the 72 virgins. It's all astrology. You're not going to heaven with a dick. You're not going to heaven with a body anyway, but you're not going there with a dick that stays endlessly hard for all your 72 virgins, like they all say.
I have a feeling that's not going to matter anymore when you die.
Yeah. But it's not just the Bible. If you don't know by now, the Bible is not original. You still might have doubts. Here's 6,000 years of ancient holy texts going from 3 Sumerian tablets, the Babylonian Enuma Elish and the Code of Hammurabi, which is where the Jews get their punishment and code of ethics from, to the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, to the Gnostic texts, all of them, to the Quran, to the Book of Mormon, all of it. I haven't included the Ethiopian removed books from the Bible here, but I've done the first book of Esdras, and it's the same thing. So this brings us to the end of part 2, 158. This brings us to the end of part 2.
Perfect. And my headphones are dying, so that's a good thing. Whoops! Here we go.
So.
All right. So, well, that was really fascinating. I hope everybody who's listening goes back, whether you're on X, Rumble, YouTube, and checks a lot of the information out, because it's a lot to digest. But I thought it was pretty fascinating. Do you have anything you want to tie up or with that lecture, or anything
not particularly.
You want to add?
Just let me know when we can do part 3, and I'll show you how the Bible's not original.
Yeah. Well, is anything? I always say I don't think anything is original anymore. It's
not divine.
Tangled of the world.
It's not divine.
Well, I don't know, because we never went through, like, maybe next time, I don't know, we'll touch on how they decided what was going to be in the Bible, like in the Council of Rome. Because obviously someone at some point, they all came, like, hundreds of years after Jesus, they came around and said, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to be in there?
Ever since I discovered this code, I can call it, I guess, throughout all the books, I don't understand anymore why they chose certain books. They're all encoded and written the same way.
Right.
I guess they wanted people to believe it literally, and they wanted a specific story to get across.
Right. Right. Yeah, that would make sense. Absolutely. All right. Well, you guys, if you want to check out more of Micah's work, go to his website, please, at www.debunkmywork.com.
I have a
Everything's
book
there.
series. I have a
Yeah.
book series that's on there too, where I explain all this.
Yeah. And he also has a YouTube channel
Yes, which you can get.
where there's
You can
content.
get from the website. You can get all my social media. You can get a way to email me. You can get me all my videos that I've broken down. You can get my YouTube. It's all there on my website. All you got to do is just like look around.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm just going to pop you in the green room and I'll tie this up. Thank you. And we'll figure out part 3 where we talk about the rest of this. You kind of got to, it's better to chop it up into small parts anyways and let people digest it rather than to do, I don't think I could do a 4-hour stream. I think my
Right.
ADHD would kick in. I'd go nuts. But I thank you for showing up and we'll get you back for part 3, 100%.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Thanks for having me on.
Right. No problem. Take care. All right, everybody. That was a fascinating show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Tomorrow is Tinfoil Hat Friday. We're talking about Trump and time travel. Is Trump a time traveler? We're going to talk about it. You'll figure it out. We'll go through it. I know it sounds crazy. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was really fascinating, especially the swastika and the Big Dipper, where you learn where things come from and how, we pervert everything. Everything gets crazily perverted. Um, we have someone in the comments saying never read the Bible literally. Deborah and Proctor, absolutely 100%. It's not a literal translation. If it was, we would live in a crazy world. We would be seeing crazy stuff all the time. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. So join me tomorrow. But tonight, the beast system, we're talking about the Nephilim, more Bible stuff, but someone has linked it to clowns. I can't explain right now. We'll explain tonight. We're going to talk about it, but I'll probably get into the sort of serial killer part and conspiracy, but that's on the beast system. We will be live at 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Mountain Time. So you don't want to miss that. We'll be chatting about that. And then, of course, Tinfoil Hat Friday. Whether we have a Tinfoil Hat Friday next week, I don't know. Everybody's got their stuff to do. But there's a couple of things before I go. Remember, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/genxnews if you want to support the show. Of course, I think if you're on Rumble, people can send super chats and everything. If you send a super chat on Rumble, I'll certainly read them. But we have about 7 or 8 people watching live on Rumble. Thank you guys on Rumble. That's awesome. I just started the channel. We've got about 500 and some odd people watching on X. Fantastic. And of course, we've got people watching on the YouTube channel. But it is fantastic. Of course, you can help me build this channel and build up by subscribing, number 1, on all the platforms. You can share the content, repost the content on X, thumbs up on Rumble and YouTube. YouTube's throttling. I don't get the exposure I used to get on YouTube at all on the Ghostly Archives. But if you thumbs up and you share the stuff, that certainly helps. And of course, repost on X, subscribe on all platforms. And for the audio podcast on Ghostly Archives, remember, 5 stars. 5 stars. All of the links to all of the shows are at genxnewsx.com. We've let up there for a few seconds. genxnewsx.com. You will find this show, you will find the Ghostly Archives, and you will find a page for the Beast System and all the social media links. It gets kind of confusing when you're running a bunch of shows, but everything is on the website. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. I got to go take the dog for a walk. He's waiting outside, and he is not impressed. He doesn't care about the Bible. He wants his walk. He's much more practical than we are. So I want to thank you guys for listening and tuning in, and I will see you tonight and hopefully tomorrow on Tinfoil Hat Friday. Cheers.